Welcome to the Change of Him podcast. My name is Gerard Uselli. We are on episode 46. And let me say, the change has just been incredible as far as the amount and the variety of guests that we've had on this platform so far. And it goes to show that the journey of change is subjective and objectively for the world within our own ears, one platform at a time. So, with that being said, I have a very special guest with me today. His name is Charlie from Small Calamities. Charlie, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, something that I would love to ask, as I ask all of my guests for a first question, is what your childhood was like growing up.
So I grew up here in LA, and there was always a lot of music in my house. My dad played music, my brother played music, and so I think I kind of came to that from being in that environment, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, overall, I had a pretty independent childhood, I would say, and really explored LA a lot. Kind of um, learned to do things pretty early on. I was working by the time I was already in, I think, middle school or high school. So,
Oh, wow. What was your first job?
um, first job, I kind of had two things going on. I think I was like building people websites
Oh,
as a
nice.
freelance thing, and then I was also worked at like a pizza shop kind of thing.
That's pretty cool. What was it kind of like for you to kind of explore like both worlds of that just in the realm of customer service?
Um, I learned that food service is very hard.
Yes, I was
And,
the busboy at one point. I could definitely give you the empathy on that one.
it's funny because I think people, some people look down on those jobs, right? There's like a lot of I think there's like a class aspect to that, right? Of like people who work in food service and people who work at retail. But I will say, like, I've done consulting. I've done a lot of different jobs that involve dealing with a lot of people and kind of complex things, and I I would do any of those ones again, but I don't think I could work a fast paced food service job. It really takes a lot out of you.
I think just a final point on the food service. What gets interesting working in food service, especially in maintenance of the food, it just turns on you as far as not even expecting how bad food could go in a span of a day. Like you don't even
Yeah,
realize like how well you have to maintain food in order to serve it to other people.
that and just the multitasking too, right?
Oh yeah.
If you talk like you go through drive-throughs, you see people like talking through the thing and making the food and having to go through the window. So being able to keep track of that many things at once is kind of pretty crazy.
Absolutely. So, kind of like within that realm of your life, do you remember the first time you recorded your own original content? And what was it like to hear yourself for the first time?
Ooh, I don't recall exactly. It probably would have been somewhere, I'm guessing like seventh grade or so, when I really started writing a lot of songs. And I think I tried to write like funny songs at first, so they weren't that like personal at the time yet. Um, and it's interesting. I don't think I don't really remember having like a particular reaction to like hearing them for the first time. I think it just seemed normal. But I also think that if I heard them, I don't have a lot of that stuff anymore. But if I were to be able to go back and listen to them now, I would probably uh, definitely,
The cringe factor would maybe
be
turn
hearing,
on a little bit.
yeah, be hearing every mistake, every thing I would do differently now.
I think it's just interesting as someone who dabbles with music myself. Like when you do listen to old recordings of yourself, even for me, like 5 years ago, you think you do everything right. And then you just hear yourself back. You're like, oh my God, how do you actually get away with this?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I'll have, and I think sometimes, well, depending on both the song, but also like what kind of mood I'm in, I'll have like both sides to it. Like sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be like, what was I thinking? And
Right.
sometimes I'll go, well, I remember this being much worse than it is.
Exactly.
Now that I listen back to it.
So, like, when was the first time you felt like you had talent to pursue music full time?
Um, I think around the time of our last album, so not the one that just came out, but before that, Designer Heartache, when we really started to, have people kind of connect with the songs and really like identify as listeners of us. Like I remember someone sent me, some random person sent us a screenshot where we were their most listened to artist on Spotify for the year. And I
Wow.
was like, man, wait till you find out there are better bands than us. Like it's going to be crazy. Um, but just that kind of aspect of like really reaching people and people, I think, identifying with what we're doing in a positive way has made it seem like there's a possibility there. And music is definitely a growing industry with lots of money, to where you can be very successful now.
Well, definitely in the realm of YouTube. And as far as lots of money and for how people are discovered, I will say it's a lot of thumbnails as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was kind of being sarcastic, but the way that I kind of joke sometimes, right, that we're basically a t-shirt company with a very inefficient marketing plan that involves making music, right?
I
Because
got you.
most of our money comes from t-shirts, but yeah, I think that we're definitely at a point where we think we have what it takes to do this, but also that to do this in general, when you talk to, I'm always surprised when I talk to like people in bands who are more successful than we are, and like maybe have some name recognition in within certain like niche genres, right? But they always make a lot less than I think people think that they do, right? It's a tough market to be a musician right now.
Yes, and just with not to really specify on like music controversy as far as like on digital platforms, but that has been a big topic of debate for years. And then you want to also compare people like Chance the Rapper who have been fighting for a music union more than just like what BMI has to offer and things like that. It just gets very interesting when you have an artist perspective as far as what type of change there's willing to be made happen.
Right, exactly.
So, in that regard, kind of to move a little bit more forward in your music. So, like, I saw your video for Summer in Chicago, and I love the concept. I'm a big karaoke person. I'm curious about this, especially in LA. What's your favorite karaoke bar, and what's one of your more priceless karaoke stories?
So I don't actually do karaoke that much, but I will say that I think my favorite karaoke bar I've been to is actually in New York, which would be the Alligator Lounge, I think it's called, in Brooklyn.
Oh, I was there right before the pandemic. That's funny you mentioned them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a divey place, but I think that's the most fun that I've had on a karaoke night. Um, Karaoke stories. I think the only thing that I have in the realm of like a karaoke story would be when I was in college. They had like a college-wide karaoke night, and I was kind of just sitting there in the audience with my roommate and a bunch of other people, and they go, okay, now we're going to have Charlie Wolf come up and sing "Make Love to You" by Boys to Men,
Oh
which I
boy.
did not, which I did not sign up to do, and I do not know that song. And I'm an indie rock guy, so that's very outside kind of what I'm familiar with. So somebody had signed me up to do this without telling me, and I had to kind of fake my way through it. It was pretty bad. I would not recommend doing karaoke to a song you don't know.
Now, not to mention the name of my friend who was able to pull this off in such a hilarious way. Just imagine you have the voice box of Beavis from Beavis and Butthead singing Kryptonite by Three Doors Down. I witnessed that 6 years ago. I felt like I was at the Garden.
Oh, I saw someone do. It was fantastic. I saw someone do. I think it was "Wrecking Ball" by Miley Cyrus.
Oh, yeah.
And, but they played it like completely straight through the verse, and then as soon as they got to the chorus, they did like the death metal like scream just very unexpectedly over the whole like "I give it like a wrecking ball," right? And it was
The,
it was
the,
very.
look, it's only a job for a cowboy that he's able to fulfill.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me about the writing process for Moments of Impact. Did you have changes in your life that inspired the content to come to fruition?
I think to some extent. So we're never really people who like not at least actively sit down and go, we're going to write for, this album right here, right? So some of the songs actually are, from like years ago. I think some of the oldest songs probably from like 2016, 2017. I mean, recorded now, obviously, but it was written back then. But when we wrote it, it was mostly in the past year, and I do think the interesting thing for me is I would say that about half the album we had written and mostly recorded by like February of last year. And then obviously COVID happened. So I think it didn't start as our kind of COVID album, but it sort of became our COVID album as we
Ah,
continued to work on
I
it.
gotcha.
And we continued to like add more songs. And I think just things that were going on with us, like our bassist had he was engaged and then he was not engaged, and I had some of my own things going on, so we all had different things in our lives that were happening, not to mention just suddenly now we can't play any shows, the world's changing, all that. So I think that you can kind of hear that in the songs, but as this kind of album progressed, we just continued to write and continued to um, try to, I don't know if embrace is the right word, right? But try to like try to make the most of the kind of situation as we could, and all the changes that were happening, both just in the world and in our lives, and write based on that. And that's why that's why the album's 17 tracks, because pandemic just kept going on. We kept feeling, well, should we write more songs?
So
Should we
wait, you're
release
on the
them?
equivalence of how many months we've been in the pandemic. It's practically 17 months at this point. So you're doing a song a month.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's funny because it was because early in the pandemic, because we were originally going to release it like mid last year, but then we were like, let's keep waiting because we want to be able to tour around it.
Yeah.
And then finally we just got to a point where like, nah, we should just put this out because people were asking for it, and we had some singles that came out, and we're like, okay, is it weird if you release a single and don't release the album for like a year? So we just put it out, but it definitely grew, and I think the concept of what it is changed as just the world changed and our lives changed in the pandemic.
Absolutely. And kind of to that point, as things are on the verge of reopening now throughout the country, do you have any shows lined up at all for the year?
We do not. We just started thinking about booking a tour. So I've reached out to a couple places, and it's interesting. It may be different on the East Coast. I know, especially because you guys had a lot of things happen earlier than we did, but a lot of the venues in LA, SF, San Jose, like going up all the way towards Washington, are not booking at all yet.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so we're hoping we can do a tour maybe in the fall. We got our van all ready to go, so we'll see, but nothing currently.
So to kind of like amp yourself up for when the time comes in touring, do you have like a priceless tour story you want to share?
We've really only done local touring, like within California and surrounding states. So I don't have anything that interesting. I think the most interesting thing I can share is I was talking to our friend Bobby Victor, who used to play keyboards with us, and um, we were talking about going back up to San Francisco for something. Maybe it was another show. I don't remember. Um, and he's an interesting guy, kind of very savant, like incredible keyboardist, but very kind of goofy, absent-minded person. So he's like, oh yeah, I actually need to go back up to San Francisco. He's like, I left my 88 key piano keyboard at the venue, and I was like, wait, what? And he
Hold
was like,
on a second.
yeah, I was like, he was like, yeah, when we played there like a year ago, he's like, I left the whole stage piano at the venue. And I'm like, how did you not, how do you leave? Like, it's giant, right? How do you leave that there? And I was like, dude, with all the pandemic and stuff, you're probably not getting that piano back. It probably sold out.
What did he say to that?
Well, he's holding out hope. That venue's still closed, so we'll
Oh
see.
man,
I,
you
I
gotta
left I
love.
left a couple things there too. I left like a mic stand maybe and one other thing, but I like to believe that just, for years this venue has been holding our things, and one day they'll open up and we'll have a piano and a mic stand. But probably
See,
not.
it's kind of like the good karma version of a library, where it's kind of like you have all the books in store, you forget to return them, and let's just hope they don't charge you the $150 for about 10 years worth of keeping your books on file.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think of microphones that way, like, the leave a book, take a book type of thing. Like
Right.
sometimes you have more microphones than you're supposed to. Sometimes you don't have enough, but maybe it all evens out at the end. You can hope.
Absolutely. And something from your website that kind of made your band stand out to me. I like the script that you came up with on the website. It's pretty interesting. I also dabble with like certain things with like a cartoon that I'm working on. So I just finished up a pilot script and everything like that. So found it interesting. What kind of inspired that process in doing a script to have people engage with your band?
I think we just were experimenting with trying something a little bit different for the bio. I think, especially when I think about, people in the press, or just people, who have to read a lot of band bios, because like when I'm booking shows, looking for people to play with, I might read a lot of band bios, and they're really all the same. They're really all like, Mark, John, and Steve founded, this band, and now they play these songs. And I was trying to think of something like, how do we stand out? How do we come up with something that's not just the same? We're from this city, we play this genre, we do this thing. And I think that was a good format, and especially, during this pandemic when a lot more stuff's online, it's a little bit more engaging.
There you go. Absolutely. And kind of to close it all off at this point, and something also I like to ask all of my guests on my final question is, what is the biggest change you want to see for yourself?
I'd like to play shows again. I think
I
that's
think that is a great synopsis of what a lot of musicians are feeling right now.
yeah.
Must say though, I love it. I think you were the easiest one sentence answer ever in history between 46 episodes. So in that regard, you should be very proud of yourself.
Well, thank you.
Yep. So nonetheless, that concludes episode 46 for the Change Within podcast. For those who haven't had a chance to check us out but want to, please do so at our Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Charlie, thank you very much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. You too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.